So, Chris, tell us about the struggles and the challenges growing up with a disability, and how you overcame those struggles.
So I was born with a physical disability. I was born with two fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. And now I have a super cool bionic arm. But, the majority of my life, I hid my disability. For 17 years, I hid my hand. I was bullied. I was like so depressed, and like mental health just wasn't a thing for me because I was just a one-handed guy living in a two-handed world. You know, when everyone stares at you, when everyone makes fun of you, when you're kind of segregated and shown to be the monster, it takes a toll. And unfortunately, there are so many labels that get put on people, especially people with disabilities. When you think about synonyms for disability, you think of weak or broken or useless or helpless or less than. And I don't know if you can imagine being a kid living a life they didn't ask for, being labeled weak or broken. So that really hurt me. And for 17 years, I hid my disability up until a few years ago. So I had to build this persona of fake confidence. And I kind of became that person that everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's just the guy who hides his hand. But I had this fake sense of confidence about my disability and pretended like it didn't exist. And I did that for almost, 20 years.
So, right around that time, I think it was, I believe, 17 or 18 years old, right? I think there was a bit of dabbling in substances, and then you got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So, tell us about how that felt at that time.
Honestly, I could define it with one word, and it's numb. I was numb to everything, and I tried to do everything to numb out the pain of being different, the pain of feeling like I wasn't enough. And I know a lot of people can probably sympathize with that. We go through so much, and it's so much to deal with at once that we want to run from it. We want to hide from it, and that's what I did. I hid my hand. I hid my feelings. I hid my emotions. I tried to numb out the world, and more specifically, I tried to numb out my world by running from something that, one, I didn't ask for, and two, I didn't deal with. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, at 19 years old. And that was a massive wake up call. I was in a hospital and I didn't understand. I had to inject myself with insulin to stay alive now, like multiple times a day. And I couldn't eat as many donuts as I wanted. And I'm like, what is going on? Like what does this even mean? And I almost laughed because I was like, I'm that disabled guy who now has diabetes. Like, is this a joke? But that was the wake up call I needed. That was a catalyst for asking the most important question I've ever asked myself in my life. What can I do with where I'm at right now to make this suck a little bit less? And that question just constantly went on in my mind. Like, how can I become more than what's happened to me? How can I become more than this circumstance that I hate? But how can I not let that hate towards a circumstance I can't control me? And I just started asking myself that question over and over. And my decisions, my behaviors, my actions, my thoughts started to replicate, that question. And I really feel like that question was the catalyst to get to where I'm at now.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful. And so, did you like read that question or hear someone say it, or how did that like come across your mind?
I think I've heard a version of it before, but I just remember being in the hospital bed staring at that like gross yellowish ceiling and just being like, what can I do? And I kind of built on that. I'm like, what can I do right now? Well, right now in the hospital, I can't really do anything aside from control my thoughts. What can I do right now to make it not suck as bad? Sometimes we get addicted to this, like making everything beautiful, making everything like amazing. And sometimes we have to be real. Some situations do suck. They do. And we have to allow them to suck and not invalidate the fact that it does suck. Now, there's a difference between dwelling on something and acknowledging the reality of something. For me, I was like, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that I don't like this. But I'm also going to acknowledge that I don't want to stay in this feeling, because if I already have to go through this diabetes, I already have to go through being different, I already have to go through feeling like a monster, I don't have to beat myself up in my own head. If you get a flat tire on the side of the road, you don't set your car on fire. You deal with the flat tire. But that's what I felt like I was doing, and a lot of people do. A lot of people set the car on fire. Instead of addressing the main issue, they build upon it and make it worse. So that question really built and built and built. Now, a good question doesn't lead to an amazing outcome immediately. It still took me 5+ years, 6+ years to get the most comfortable and confident with who I was and figuring out that question. But that was a catalyst for sure.
And so you used to hide your disability, right? Up until was diabetes the big change for you, or what do you think it was becoming more confidence just over the years? What made you change your mind?
Diabetes was the catalyst for me to start doing something different, to stop doing substances, stop running with the wrong crowds. It was, we have, there's a book called The Power of Moments, and it talks about, certain moments that create change. And it's not always one like Disney type moment where it's like, well, everything's amazing. For me, that was like one of the changes. And it got me to start pursuing a different career into fitness, and from fitness into speaking. And now speaking is like the passion I want to do for the rest of my life. But to stop hiding my disability, that didn't happen until I was 26 or 27. And that was probably the hardest battle for me, is to accept that I look the way I look and that it doesn't change the value of who I am. I was actually holding myself back from being my true authentic self by trying to fabricate and control and manipulate the way people saw me. I was so worried about the way people saw me, or the way I thought they saw me, that I changed my whole life around that idea, around a premise that doesn't even exist. So it wasn't until I got this prosthetic arm that I really took my glove off. How I was hiding my hand was with glove. Once I got this, I took the glove off, and that's when life kind of exploded for me.
And was that, because I read this article where it said that you showed your arm in a 2017 YouTube video. Was that actually how it happened? And what led to that decision?
That YouTube video was literally the first time I took my glove off and showed anyone, including at the time my girlfriend of 3.5, 4 years. That was the first time she saw my hand. That was the first time the world saw my hand. And for anyone watching who doesn't happen to know me, when I say I hid my hand, I can't say that enough. I can't stress that enough. I almost got arrested at the Washington Monument when I was in middle school because I refused to take my hand out of my pocket for the security guards. I would put my backpack on and go to school, and if I put my hand in my pocket, which is how I hid my hand before I got the glove, I would have to ask to go to the bathroom just to take my backpack off, or I would leave it dangling on my left side the entire day. I would skip school if I couldn't find the glove, and my parents knew how attached I was to it, and it wasn't a problem. It was so bad that everything involved hiding my hand. My entire life revolved around hiding my hand. So that moment of being able to post on YouTube and just kind of show the world was for me. It was for me to be open, me to accept that this is me. And it happened to go extremely viral and go all over the place, from Washington Post to YouTube front page of Reddit. And so many people reached out to me saying I share your struggle. I know what it's like to hide. I know what it's like to feel deemed by society as broken, and I have your back. And that was a really big moment for me.